Let's just jump right in today. I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. Let's jump forward maybe 20 or 30 years into the future.
Okay.
We have officially hit what the futurists and economists in today's stack of research call radical abundance.
Which is basically the ultimate sci-fi dream, right?
That
The utopia.
On paper, yeah, absolutely. I mean, artificial intelligence is doing all the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively.
Right.
Automation provides every physical good you could possibly want. Food, housing, gadgets, the cost of all of that has dropped to near zero.
It's the post-work world we've been promised since like the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly. The whole concept of scarcity, the idea that there just isn't enough stuff to go around, is
Yeah.
basically a history lesson you'd tell your grandkids.
Yeah.
But here's the curveball. And frankly, it's the reason we're doing this deep dive today.
Hmm.
In this world of perfect abundance, the big question isn't how do we survive?
Or how do I pay my rent?
Right. The question becomes, who are you when the struggle to survive is completely gone?
And that is a genuinely terrifying question for a lot of people. Because if we're honest with ourselves, so much of our identity, our self-worth, is completely tied up in the struggle itself, the grind.
Yeah, the grind is who we are. So today we are unpacking a really fascinating collection of sources. We've got essays, future projections, some deep sociological theory.
All looking at this massive transition.
Right, the transition from an economy of status through struggle to a life of mastery play and embodiment.
Yeah.
Basically, how do we keep humanity from going collectively insane when we don't actually have to do anything?
It's a crisis of meaning, and what really stands out in this material is that the authors identify two very specific archetypes that are going to get hit the hardest by this shift.
I loved this part because they feel like complete opposites, but they're really not. You've got the macho oil worker and the Monaco elite.
Right. On the surface, they seem entirely different.
Huh.
One is blue-collar, gritty, dangerous. The other is high society luxury and pure exclusivity.
But the source material argues they are actually facing the exact same identity crisis.
They are.
Wait, hold on. Break that down for us. How is a guy covered in mud on an oil rig facing the same crisis as a guy sipping champagne on a super yacht?
Because both of them derive their core identity from scarcity. Look at the macho worker. Think oil rigs, deep-sea fishing logging.
High danger jobs.
Exactly. He proves his worth through physical grit.
Mm.
It's all about surviving hardship that other regular people just can't handle.
Okay, so his inherent value is basically, I can take a beating and keep going.
Precisely. Now look at the Monaco elite. They prove their worth through possessing things others can't have.
Right.
A Ferrari is only special because not everyone has one.
It's status through exclusion.
Exactly. But here comes radical abundance. AI devalues labor because a robot can drill the oil safer faster and without complaining.
And it doesn't need to sleep.
Right, and then abundance devalues stuff
Okay.
because you can just 3D print a supercar in your garage for the cost of the raw materials.
So the grittiness becomes obsolete and the exclusivity becomes impossible.
And both of those ego identities just collapse instantly.
That is heavy. So let's unpack how humanity actually pivots here. Because the sources are surprisingly optimistic about this.
Very optimistic, yeah.
They argue we don't just turn into blobs on the couch, right? Like the people from the movie WALL-E.
Thank goodness.
We pivot to keep the gist of life, the intensity, without the economic necessity of it.
And that pivot really starts with deconstructing those old identities. Let's look at that macho energy first.
The sources make a really interesting point here. They say the oil industry vibe isn't actually about the oil.
No, not at all. If you talk to people in those high-intensity fields, it's never about the commodity. It's about competence, brotherhood, raw power.
It's about overcoming danger and knowing the person next to you has your back.
Exactly. So in an automated world, you can't just simulate that on a screen. You can't get that deep, visceral feeling from a video game.
Because the biological hardware needs to feel it. Our bodies actually know the difference between simulated danger and real friction.
Right. So the pivot goes toward extreme craftsmanship or physical feats. The sources call it the art of the effort.
I really like that phrase, the art of the effort. But unpack that a bit. Why would you do something the hard way if a robot can do it better?
That is exactly the reason. It means doing things inefficiently on purpose.
Intentionally making it hard?
Yes. In a world where a machine can make a flawless table in 10 seconds, the man who spends 3 months hand-carving a table isn't doing it for the table.
He's doing it for the struggle.
Exactly. The struggle provides the dopamine that basic survival used to provide.
So we might see a massive resurgence in things like blacksmithing, high-end restoration, or really dangerous manual arts. Not for money, But for sanity.
Precisely. It's voluntary hardship. Now flip it to the Monaco identity. The yacht parties, the expensive watches.
Well, if everyone has a yacht, the party isn't a flex anymore.
Right. So status has to shift from what you buy to how you be.
How you be. That sounds a little abstract. Are we just talking about personality contests?
In a way, yes. Think of it this way. If material goods are infinite, the only truly scarce resource left is the depth of your presence. The sources call this cognitive or spiritual real estate.
So the new currency isn't crypto or gold, it's your vibe.
It's your signature energy. You cannot automate a person's unique vibration or their level of union with source.
That makes sense.
In a room full of people who literally have everything, the most interesting person is the one with the most profound creative output or the deepest spiritual grounding.
That is fascinating. It basically turns the entire social ladder into a spiritual ladder. But I want to get back to the physical side of this because the sources talk a lot about our biological hardware.
This is critical. We can't just exist in the cloud or sit around having these high-minded spiritual conversations all day.
Right. Our bodies are ancient. They crave intensity.
And this leads us to what I think is the most interesting concept in the whole deep dive.
My absolute favorite, too. The meat hall scenario.
Yes, this is the proposed solution to the macho crisis. Imagine a marriage of the primordial past and the hyper future.
Paint the picture for us. What does a Saturday night look like in this specific post-scarcity world?
Well, you have a setting that feels almost like a Viking longhouse or a Spartan mess hall. You have feasting camaraderie, maybe a huge fire roaring in the center.
But the conversation is totally different.
Right. It's not about raiding the next village or surviving the winter. It's deep, complex discussions about AI ethics, biotechnology, and space exploration.
But the sources are very specific here. You don't just walk in and sit down at the table.
No, you have to earn your seat. You only get to the table after you've done something incredibly physically demanding.
Like what?
The sources suggest these gatherings happen after intense combat training, grappling, sparring something with real physical friction.
Why the combat, though? Why not just go for a run or lift some weights?
Because it satisfies the macho hardware, that protector and provider neurochemistry. Fighting, even safely, releases a very specific cocktail of hormones that bonds people together.
It feeds the animal brain.
Exactly. It feeds the animal
Oh,
brain,
yeah.
so the source-aligned software, the intellect, can expand freely afterward without that pent-up aggression.
It's shifting social rituals from look-at-me displays of wealth to communal celebrations of existence.
We aren't celebrating that I have more money than you. We are celebrating that we are the eyes and ears of the universe, enjoying a meal together after pushing our physical bodies to the absolute limit.
To make this work, though, you need specific activities, right? You can't just go to a standard gym and then hit a regular bar. The sources list these specific analog experiences that act as anchors in this high-tech world.
These are those voluntary struggles we mentioned. We use the perfect future of AI to subsidize a raw human experience.
Let's run through them because they paint a really cool picture of this future lifestyle. The first one they highlight is the biofeedback wilderness pilgrimage.
This is essentially the anti-vacation. No GPS, no AI assistants whispering in your ear, no smart fabric that automatically regulates your body temperature.
Just the human body navigating a raw landscape.
And the point isn't to get from point A to point B efficiently.
No, because a drone could just fly you there in 5 minutes.
Right. The point is to test your biological limits. In a world where a rescue bot is literally always 2 minutes away, you have to artificially create the edge of existence.
And the sources mention that afterwards you sit around a fire discussing how the sensory deprivation of the woods actually enhanced your ability to hear a source.
It's about stripping away the digital noise to find yourself again.
The second one is manual tech craft, or what they call the clockmaker aesthetic.
This goes right back to that inefficient building we touched on earlier, hand-forging knives from meteorites, building purely mechanical timepieces from scratch.
Why does it matter if it's mechanical, though? Why not just build a smartwatch?
Because investing finite human time makes an object sacred. In a world of instant 3D printing, a hand-carved object holds the literal vibration of human focus.
Wow.
If I give you a watch I spent 200 hours making, that's a piece of my life. That has an intrinsic value that a factory product never will.
I love that. Okay, number 3 is direct earth gastronomy.
This is moving completely beyond food as just fuel. It means growing, harvesting, and cooking a meal entirely by hand.
So no lab-grown meat and no automated harvesters for the specific ritual.
Zero. It sounds like a lot of work for one dinner,
It
right?
sounds exhausting, honestly.
But that's the whole point. It's a grounding ritual. You feel the soil, the blood, the fire. It connects the human ego to the earth.
So even if your day job involves managing Dyson spheres, those giant energy structures in space, your dinner reminds you that you are still an animal of this planet.
Exactly. It keeps you rooted.
And the fourth analog experience is deep silence retreats.
Finding dead zones. Places in these hyper-connected megacities where all signals are completely jammed.
In a world where you can be entertained 24/7, nothingness actually becomes the ultimate luxury.
It proves you don't need the constant chemical chain of entertainment to feel complete. It's about being truly comfortable in the void.
This all builds toward a specific archetype the sources mention repeatedly, the warrior poet.
This is the definitive end of the dumb jock versus weak nerd duality.
The sources describe something called the Symposium Athletic Games. It's like the ancient Olympics meets a modern TED Talk.
Think about the ancient Greeks. Plato was a wrestler. They didn't separate the gym and the library.
Right.
The symposium is high-intensity, physical competition, sprinting grappling, followed immediately by deep philosophical debate or artistic performance.
So you honor the perishable body and the infinite consciousness at the exact same time.
Exactly. You literally can't have one without the other in this new model.
To help us really get the vibe of this, the sources actually provided a movie list. I thought this was a great tool for visualization.
It really helps set the tone for what this society looks like.
First up on their list was Peaceful Warrior.
A classic. It shows a world-class gymnast who has all the physical capabilities but is spiritually completely empty until he learns that the real battle is internal.
Peak performance is just a byproduct of mastering consciousness.
Exactly.
Then there's Fight Club, which is a bit darker.
Darker, but incredibly accurate to the problem. It captures that raw, desperate need to feel something real in a sterilized consumerist world.
So the mead hall concept is basically a healthy version of Fight Club.
Yes, you get the intensity and the brotherhood without the toxic anarchy.
They also listed Hero and the Man from Earth.
Hero shows the warrior, who is also a philosopher, fighting with calligraphy and chess as much as a sword.
And the Man from Earth is basically the ultimate after-the-hunt discussion vibe. Just pure intellectual ideas flowing in a cabin.
It's the perfect representation of that intellectual feast.
There's also a brief mention of something called a silent forge.
This is such a beautiful ritual. It involves forging your own training weapons entirely by hand. They call it alchemical macho.
Alchemical macho, I like that.
You use your raw strength not to dominate others, but to create beauty. You transform that aggressive masculine energy into structure and discipline.
Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because we can do all these rituals, right? We can forge knives and wrestle in the mud and have silent retreats, but we are still human.
Very human.
We still have egos. We still inherently want status.
We do. And the sources address this head on. You can't just pretend the human ego doesn't exist. It will always find a way to assert itself.
So the big question is, if we don't have money or luxury goods to distinguish ourselves, how do we satisfy the ego's basic need for status?
They promote a reputation economy.
Right. We reframe the word elite to mean mastery. Status is tracked purely based on your contributions to the collective and the cultivation of your own consciousness.
But how do you prove that? How do you flex consciousness? Like, hey, everyone, look how enlightened I am. That seems completely counterproductive.
It does, right? It sounds like a spiritual ego trap. But the sources suggest the new flex is actually strategic vulnerability.
That sounds wildly counterintuitive. Usually you hide your weaknesses to look strong.
In the old world, yes. But in a world of absolute abundance, perfection is cheap. AI is perfect. AI never stutters, it never forgets a fact, it never loses its temper.
So perfection is boring.
Exactly. So the new flex is radical honesty about your mistakes. A ritual of openly discussing a failed hypothesis or a moment you lost your temper actually shows immense confidence in inner power.
So the person who stands up and says, I really messed this up and here's what I learned from it, is actually the highest status person in the room.
That's the idea, because they are showing they aren't attached to the fragile image of being perfect. They are secure enough in their identity to be openly flawed.
The sources also mention service as high ground in this new economy.
Real power is expressed through mentoring and doing the heavy lifting in ethical governance. If you are truly elite, you serve the village.
The Viking and the sage literally become the same person.
There were two other rituals mentioned in this section that I thought were just beautiful: harmonic local resonance and ancestral seed stewardship.
These are all about dissolving boundaries. Vocal resonance which is singing deep tones together to physically vibrate the chest. It shatters the feeling of being a separate ego.
You literally feel union with the group on a physical frequency level.
Yes. And the seed stewardship.
That's gardening as a co-creation ritual. In a world of entirely lab-grown perfect food, tending to a fragile heirloom seed with your own hands connects you to the ancestral line.
It's a way of saying, I am still part of the natural cycle that keeps you humble.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? We aren't in this post-scarcity world quite yet. I still have to go to work tomorrow.
We all do.
But the sources seem to strongly suggest we can start pivoting our mindset right now.
The ultimate takeaway is that the gist of life is shifting from basic survival to pure intentionality.
Hmm.
We are moving toward a world where we use the perfect future, the AI, the robotics, to subsidize a deliberately raw human experience.
The luxury isn't the object anymore. The luxury is the unfiltered human presence required to actually engage with it.
That's it. Imperfection becomes the bridge to the divine. When everything around you is easy, choosing the hard way becomes a profound spiritual act.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought from the source material. It's the concept of the paper sanctuary.
I love this idea so much, the return to maintaining physical handwritten journals.
Because a physical book is a permanent artifact of human thought. It cannot be edited, deleted, or quietly updated by an AI overnight.
It is yours. Flaws, crossed out words, ink spills and all.
It creates an unbreakable lineage of your own mind. It's completely unhackable.
So here's the question for you to chew on today. In a world where you could have literally anything instantly handed to you, what would you choose to build slowly with your own two hands?
That is the only question that really matters. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.